There is a massive amount of right-wing radicalization that has been occurring, especially in younger male spaces. Everything is completely dominated by right-wing politics. If you're a dude under the age of 30 and you have any hobbies whatsoever, whether it's playing video games, whether it's working out, whether it's, I don't know, listening to like a history podcast or whatever, every single facet of that is just completely dominated by center-right to, I wouldn't say far right in the same way that it was back in like the 2016 era at the end of like Obama's administration, but like definitely center right to Trumpian right, like openly Trump right, not like genuinely neo-Nazi. That part is quieted down a little bit, but like they're like 90% of the way there for the most part. And that's it. Everything that they see is right-wing sentiment being expressed by individuals that they find charismatic, thought leaders, influencers that they subscribe to. And I think that that is some of the reason why you see this movement.
The YouTube comments are incredible. Lots of 40 plus people claiming you changed their decades long belief hustle. Yeah, that was actually kind of shocking. I was genuinely confused by this. Part of the reason why I was genuinely confused by this is because like apparently a lot of you showed me to your parents and they like actually watched. Hasan is right. I'm a Democrat at 41. The campaign is making me sad. They keep moving right. I want them to move left. My daughter introduced me to Hasan 3 years ago, and I've been listening to him ever since. He helped change my perspective on Israel, trans people, socioeconomic politics, and religion. His influence has been massive for me, and I wish more of my demographic could be exposed to his long play content. I have gratitude for him. That's crazy to me. I did not know that it was like that. As a longtime listener and a fan of Crooked Media, Offline is my favorite of the bunch. It was really interesting to hear someone talk who is very clearly left and not just liberal. It kind of opened my eyes to the fact that PSA can be a bit of an echo chamber sometimes. Having this fresh perspective injected into the show was really good for you guys and the show in general, I think. I'm also impressed with how much information and statistics this guy has ready in his head like that. He really knew his stuff and didn't talk out of his ass, but backed it up with data and polling. Great interview, John. You are good without derailing chatters? Yes. I think that I forget how much better I am when I'm just simply talking to a person who is listening. And I'm not just like getting derailed. I try my best, and I think it's I get a little discouraged from time to time, but it's good to see that like I have some level of normie appeal like this, because we do get trapped in our echo chambers online, and we do end up forgetting that like normies and their reaction to my sentiment, to my commentary, is entirely different than the people who are desperately trying to make me look a certain type of way. I'm glad Hasan the Hun is sounding the alarm about right-wingers' total dominance over the young male demo. If you're a dude under 30 and you see it in your group chat, social feeds every day, so far the progressive establishment has failed to invest in creative solutions to compete. I think a lot of people don't understand that like my analysis of the situation isn't simply to like flood the market with like liberal content though, because I think that there is a problem far larger than that. And I think there is an education gap for young men. And I think that education gap creates an opportunity gap for a lot of young men, especially when you pair that up with the entitlement that is baked into a patriarchal construct that you are born into, that you're conditioned into socially. When your expectations of what society is supposed to be designed around does not match the output, does not match your outcomes, you end up becoming resentful. Okay, you end up becoming resentful, you end up becoming angry, and you find yourself infinitely more susceptible and infinitely more open to and primed to right-wing radicalization. There's the other side of this, of course, that is like really silly, but I think a lot of people ultimately look at this stuff and say, oh, it's because the left is so intolerant towards men or whatever. I'm not. I'm a man. I'm very bro-y. Sometimes the other aspects of the quote unquote online left get mad at me for those particular values or the aesthetics, but it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter, right? It literally doesn't matter. It like in the eyes of so many of these people that like watch, I guess like Sneeko or watch Aiden Ross, like they don't see me as a masculine figure regardless. They see me as a pussy. And I think that is in some ways wish casting, because they see me as a pussy basically because like I'm a liberal in their minds. I'm a libtard, right? So for them, it's more so just like the ideology. That's what matters more. Not like your physical presence, not the way that you carry yourself. None of that matters. What matters is, are you a right winger or not? If you're a right winger, that means you are actually a masculine figure. And for a lot of these people, they don't fit that mold either. They don't fit that mold. It's aspirational. So in their minds, it's like better if you, in their minds, if you're like kind of a loser, if you're kind of insecure, in your mind, it's better for you to be perceived as masculine online as long as you say right-wing things. Therefore, you are also masculine that way. That's it. They're just LARPing. Is that why you tell people to suck you're being broy to appeal to young men? No, I tell people to suck my dick because I am that person. I'm not being broy to appeal to young men. I'm just not fucking changing my attitude or my sentiment so that I can be like more, I don't know, kind or more aesthetically left or liberal or whatever the This is just who I am. Why the would I change it? This goes back to the UFC conversation about creating a character because you said you don't do that. Exactly. I think it's also a dynamic about being online, okay? The more we exist online as opposed to existing in the real world, the more our outward presence online changes, like the more that becomes a more important part of our lives, right? And that's the thing. I think that when you're online, your outward presence online can be very different than who you are in the real world. That's why a lot of people personally think, like amongst content creators, so I'll give you an example. A lot of people personally think that being toxic and being edgy is actually the only way you can be real, right? Like they think someone like myself or even the likes of like, I don't know, Pokemon or all these other content creators are like faking it. They're actually fake. They're not real. Like they can't be real because like when you're online, you say edgy shit all the time. Like you have to say edgy shit. That's like the only way to showcase authenticity. You cannot be authentically yourself and be like a person who doesn't want to harm marginalized people. That's inauthentic. That's inauthentic. Like that is the fucking baked in sentiment for a lot of people, right? They go, you're virtue signaling. You're virtue signaling. You're not real. You're fake. They just can't fucking like comprehend that. No, like this is just my genuine opinion. I don't want to be a fucking dickhead, right? Sorry. That's just who I am. The same goes for right-wing sentiment as well. The more masculine the more right-wing you are, the more masculine you are. The more you present yourself as right-wing, the more masculine you are. That is the attitude that a lot of people have. It's more about wish casting and alternative reality to make up for what you feel you lack in the real world. It's vulnerable young men who are very insecure due to a multitude of different like normal conditions that existed even when they were, I don't know, better off materially than they are now. But then also on top of that, it's like a lack of opportunity for them. They feel like, you know, society's leaving them behind, and it certainly doesn't match up with their expectations of what society was designed for. They see how things were for their father's generation, and then they don't see that matching up with their current existence, and they get mad. So they look for alternative reasons as to why it sucks. There are a shit ton of people out there that will immediately go, yes, perfect. It's because of bitches. It's because of girls that have not fucked you. That's the reason why everything sucks. Yeah, it's because of black and brown people coming into America and it's like stealing your jobs and your opportunity. You were supposed to get that, but you didn't. DEI, woke, all this shit. It's a great way. It's a great puzzle piece for a lot of men who are seeking out answers. If you don't try to communicate, if you don't try to fucking address the harm, if you don't see where these guys are suffering and meet them where they're at and try to fix at least one of the major problems that they have and try to instill confidence in them, you are going to have a lot of fucking losers like this constantly chirping and constantly crying. Like one thing that I used to say all the time that I kind of brought up in the Pod Save America episode as well was that it's counterculture as well that plays a role in this. Like I called it immediately. As soon as Joe Biden was the presidential candidate, I was like, we're going to go back to the culture war shit. And we did, right? But the thing is, it wasn't Pod Save America. Sorry. It was one of the Pod Johns' episode is called Offline, I think. But we went there. We're there now. We're back in that space. And one of the things when Trump was president that I used to tell people all the time was, hey, notice how your life isn't fucking better? Because right-wingers were coming to my community all the time with the same resentments and the same anxieties and the same anger that they had towards trans people, towards gay people, towards black people, brown people, immigration. And I would always ask him, like, okay, Trump is president. Why hasn't your life gotten fixed? And they had no answer for it, because that's just immaterial at the end of the day. In, you know, from where they're standing, obviously, it's not immaterial for black people, brown people, trans people, but like it is immaterial for them because it doesn't matter. Like harming undocumented immigrants in the country is not going to save your life. It's not. It's not going to fix your life at all. It's not going to make it better. It's just a simple distraction that they're using. It's a vehicle for the Republican Party to focus and funnel your frustration towards an acceptable, appropriate target, because they don't want you to ever think about the way this society is designed. They don't want you to think about who's actually causing you harm. Don't get mad at your boss. That's a capital owner. That's a good guy. That's a productive force in this society. You, on the other hand, should get mad at people who have less than you. And the more insecure you become and the more scared you are of your future, the more susceptible you are to this sort of priming.